bit of a delay,
Mhm.
but they should be. Oops. All right. So,
Okay, I see me.
all right. Well, welcome to our viewers to Stories at Sundown. This is Michael McCullough from Willow Library, broadcasting live from Burley Corners in Penfield Township, but not from the outdoors this week. I got scared by the gray skies and thought it would be too dark, and of course, right now the sky is blue, so I miscalculated. But here we are, and my guest this week is Tristan Breedhawk. Am I saying your last name correctly, Tristan?
Close. It's Bredehoft.
Bredehoft. So there's actually that syllable in the middle. So
yes.
Awesome. Well, welcome.
Well, thank you for having me on air. I appreciate the invite.
Yeah, it's great. Glad you could come on. And so everybody, Tristan, I think, but if you don't, Tristan and his brother Jackson are the entrepreneurs who brought us a coffee shop in downtown Battle Creek, Cafe Rica. Started in the cargo pop-up box over there across from the post office, and now you're down right across from the Kellogg Foundation. What's the address of your place?
62 East Michigan Avenue. And it's Suite 100, but it's the first big glass doors.
Yeah, and you open your doors when?
So Monday through Friday, we're open 6:30 to 6, and then on the weekend it's 9 to 4. So and Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, you opened in the spring, right about the time the pandemic came around. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. February 29th was our grand opening, and we got a solid 3 weeks before everything kind of went crazy, and we had to shut down for a month. And I kick back up in April or May.
Yeah. So it's been quite a journey for you. I remember going to visit you when you're in the cargo box and talking to you there, and that was a really sweet place because we really lacked that kind of place in downtown Battle Creek. So you came along, and then you incubated over there in the parking garage for a while.
Yep, we shared a space.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about yourself. Are you native here?
Yes. So I basically moved here when I was 6 months old. So practically born and raised here. I went to Harper Creek High School. Graduated in 2013. And then I went on to Michigan State University and studied political science pre-law. I originally wanted to be a lawyer, and I guess my grades and my LSAT score kind of steered me in a different direction. It was my junior year. I took the LSAT, went over to San Francisco, and I had an internship with a drone racing league. It was a startup, and that's what kind of got me interested in like business and creating something on your own. It was a business of like 2 people. I think me and another intern were 3 and 4 at the time, employees. So it was a really, really small company, but they were doing really awesome things. So that got me going with business ideas. And then when I got back, my brother and my dad had been talking about starting a coffee business. And so it was almost like perfect timing.
Yeah. And I told your brother, I haven't talked to Jackson as much as I've talked to you, because you were kind of like, you were holding the fort down there in the early days. And I would see Jackson maybe at the end of the day. So I assume that he's the older brother?
He is 8 years older than me. And so he is my older brother. And he's been awesome. I moved in with him when I moved back to Battle Creek. So I appreciate his hospitality in his house.
That's cool. Yeah. And so and you say your father was involved in developing the business plan. What drew you to coffee? Was it just the fact that Battle Creek was lacking it at the time, or was it something deeper than that?
It was a little bit deeper than that. So we actually started doing this 2 years prior, or 1.5 years prior to the cargo units. My dad had been drinking this coffee for I don't know, 25 plus years. And it's from Costa Rica. So when my dad and my mom went on their honeymoon to Costa Rica, he kind of started this like quasi journey to finding best coffee that he wanted to drink. And he came across Cafe Nerano. It's, you know, a co-op of 2,400 family-owned farms. And he just loved it. We literally used to bring suitcases all the way from Costa Rica just so he can have his like half year supply, because my mom would go every 6 months because she had family down there. And so it just kind of started with that. And he had an online business that he purchased in 2013 for his hobby, which is model airplanes. And that's kind of where they had the idea to start selling this online, because you couldn't get it in the United States. And so it was kind of, well, let's do this. And then I have more coffee. And then, so it just kind of snowballed from there. We started importing it, selling it. Nothing crazy happened. I still was in school. My brother had a full-time job. He was in Creek. We would talk to each other about it from time to time to kind of see what we wanted to do with it. But it was never in the forefront in our minds. So we just kind of left it on the back burner, I guess, per se. And so then after I graduated, I moved to Grand Rapids, and I started thinking, like, how do I actually turn this into something that I want to do for a living? And so we started going to trade shows, going to events and selling bags. And that's really where the us thinking about Battle Creek started. We went to a Kalamazoo Blues Fest, and we had our setup. We were a vendor. We were ready to sell hundreds and hundreds of bags in a 2-day event. We were super stoked. And we got there and we sold one bag the whole week. So that was one of the times where we were like, oh man, really down. But we took it was like an 18-hour day. We took that day and started conversing with each other, trying to figure out, okay, how do we get this in people's hands? Because they never heard of the brand, they never tasted it. And so it was hard for people to want to spend $10 a bag on something. They're like, I don't even know what this is.
Yeah.
And so that's where the cold brew came in. And so we went to the Can Do Kitchen boot camp in Kalamazoo and started learning about the food business. They have a really awesome 12-week program for people that are interested in food business, from like beginning to end, branding, marketing, everything. They walk you through it and teach you a lot. It was probably one of the best stepping stones in our career, was going to that boot camp. We got a ton of information. So that got licensed to bottle our cold brew, and our plan was to sell it in farmers markets, one being Battle Creek and one, I think, Kalamazoo, that we were just kind of go between. I think Wednesdays we were going to go to Battle Creek, and then Saturdays in Kalamazoo. And the cargo units actually popped up, and it just was an extremely awesome offer that we applied for, got it, and we're like, we can't not do this.
Yeah.
So that's when we really started focusing on Battle Creek and really developing a community around our product and us.
Yeah, and I think that's really interesting. You just said it. You're developing a community around your product and you. And I'm curious. I'm always curious about people who grew up here. I mean, most people who grew up in a town, a small city, they never think of themselves as, like, you know, planning there and beginning to build a life. Was that your story? Was it your surprise that you decided to do that?
That was, I would say, probably the most common story, as you said, ever told, is everybody is like, oh, I'm going to leave. I'm going to go somewhere else, going to experience the world. And then you come back and you're like, okay, this is the community I want to be in. It's a lot better than when my young self was thinking it was. You're like, especially Battle Creek, you hear it all the time. It's like, oh, this is a terrible place. I want to get out. But it's actually a really amazing place. There's a lot of amazing people. And right now, especially, there's a really nice feeling where everybody's kind of like coming together and helping each other and rallying around each other. So yeah, no, it was not in the plans.
Well, and you have an amazing place, and it's hard for me to believe that anybody listening to this hasn't been there, although I'm sure that's true. um, and you really do feel that warmth of community there. I spend a lot of time there, as you know, working. I'll buy a cup of coffee and then I'll go sit down and I'll do video conference calls and things like that. But it's a gorgeous, gorgeous place.
Thank you.
And you've done some amazing things with it. I'm really curious, and I know we have a book that we want to talk about a little bit anyway, but I actually think there's a pretty good segue here, and I think you do probably will too. But everything that you picked up along the way, I mean, what were some of the key lessons, and how did? And I read something that I used in the post in promoting this about what was the word? It wasn't the customer is always right, but it was something like that. Fill me in.
I'm
always do the right thing. Always do the right thing.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. So when I saw that, I started thinking, I was like, I've always kind of had that feeling that making sure that I'm doing the right thing consciously will always be better for me, even if it's not like the most opportunistic thing to do. So I've always kind of followed that in my life and trying to make sure that morally I am okay with my decision that I'm making and not putting something that's superficial or like greed or money as the main prerogative in my decision making, because I rather be happy with what I'm doing than live a lifestyle that eats away at me every day. So that has really translated into my lifestyle and how we operate the business. We'll always use that as a I guess North Star, if you want to say, in how we want to progress through life.
Yeah. And so so coffee is sort of like the anchor there, but how would you describe your business?
I would really say we're in the people business. That's why we stress community, bringing people together. One of the main things that when we built this place was we wanted people to come here and create, gather, work, talk with each other, and really kind of build that community that is warm. Like you said, it's like I've always tried my hardest to remember everybody's name, connect with them, and build those relationships through conversations. So that's kind of the business, how I view our business, is that we're in the people business. There's plenty of coffee out in the world.
Sure.
What differentiates us is that we can connect with the people that we're selling with our coffee and us.
Yeah, I actually learned so I worked with your mom on the planning for Hispanic Heritage Month, and I learned on their kickoff that that the United States is second to Brazil in per capita coffee consumption.
Yeah, we consume a lot of coffee.
We really do. So, yeah. And who decorated your shop? I mean, it really is gorgeous. It's well designed, beautiful furniture.
Thank you. So it was a combination of a couple of people. So we worked with Cody and Caitlin from Restore 269 and Driven Design. They were our architect, and they helped us, and we gave our input, and they kind of walked through us with the design features. Of course, we already had a couple main things that really drew us to this place. Was the original tin ceiling and the brick walls. So that kind of helped us kind of go where we wanted to go with the design. It's kind of a weird, like eclectic feel. There's so many different styles. Like we have like a 70-ish kind of tile that Caitlin kind of helped us pick out. We have modern like lights that me and Jackson spent hours and hours trying to find perfect lights. And then we have a street artist that came in from Miami to draw a beautiful mural. So
yeah,
like I said, it was kind of like a combination that kind of created this weird eclectic mix.
yeah, yeah. And it's just such a. Again, we talk about Battle Creek, and Battle Creek is its own worst enemy sometimes. I mean, that's probably true of a lot of towns, right? But
Yeah.
it's such kind of like an oasis downtown. And I know I'm starting to sound a little bit like I'm promoting you, but I love the place and I go there all the time. You should check it out. People should check it out. They haven't been there.
Yeah, absolutely. Come down, talk to us. Don't even have to buy anything. You can just come in, sit down, enjoy. That's really what we wanted to build the place. We like to call it paradise. So Oasis Paradise, it's right along the same.
Yeah. And we're thinking, and you and I've talked, I and Jackson have talked about maybe once a month or so doing this there. Doing this program
absolutely.
there. So
absolutely. Come down.
Look forward to that. I'm not going to be building fires in the dark and the snow in December and January and February. I'm dedicated, but not that dedicated. So
we'll get one of those, the fireplaces that you can wheel out.
Yeah. Sounds good. So, we always try to tie this back. And I just love this book. Think Like a Monk. And that's what you suggested. Jay Shetty. It's been a bestseller. And so talk a little bit. Oh, and here we have an endorsement of the idea. So
it's a great
maybe post-pandemic we can do it in front of a live audience even.
Yeah, that would be awesome. That's why we created the stage, kind of either have like poetry, stories telling, or music. So it would be perfect.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about this book and actually more, talk about the book, but I want to hear about you, because you said that this was something that really reflects some of your values and how you try to live your life. So
so me and my girlfriend decided to buy this book and read it. And so it's Think Like a Monk, and the little tagline is train your mind for peace and purpose every day. I had kind of heard of this guy online, Jay Shetty, and I've seen kind of mix in with another guy that I follow, Gary Vaynerchuk, and how you can actually train your mind and control things that you can't control to kind of make your life simpler and more peaceful. So I had been kind of picking up on these topics that this book touches on throughout the last 3 years, about how to think positively, kind of put things that aren't important to the wayside and really remain focused on a goal. And so reading this, I'm not quite done yet, so I haven't fully read it, but I've read a couple chapters. And as I'm reading it, it's just reinforcing that all of the values that I've used to help me remain focused and patient during building this business, because it can get lonely, it can get scary, such as the last couple 6 months. But as long as you train your mind to think positively, stay focused, and kind of find the good, you can really achieve a lot of good things.
Yeah, there's a part in the book, and it's and he I guess maybe it's monk-like thing to do, to tell parables and stories, but the point was, I think this story had something to do with somebody keeps bringing news to this farmer, and the farmer says, good thing, bad thing, who knows? On and on and on, right up to the end. At one point, his son breaks his leg, and the guy's like, this is terrible. And the farmer says, good thing, bad thing, who knows? And then he doesn't get drafted into the military and goes to war, and the guy's happy, and the farmer says, good thing, bad thing, who knows? The point is that we tend to judge the moment constantly. And the teaching that the author is conveying is that, you know, by judging the moment, you box yourself in and fail to see the possibilities
Right.
and don't look at things curiously. So
Yeah. That part stuck out to me a lot because last couple of years, especially with social media and the access people have to everybody, you start to see like really extremes, positive and negative. And like I said, the guy that I've been following too, Gary Vaynerchuk, has always said, especially when it comes to feedback, is what he's saying is like, you gotta pretty much take out the ends and find the truth in the middle, in order to find progress. Because, you know, there are going to be people out there that are going to be like, oh, this is really, really good, or they're on the opposite end, this is really, really bad. And both may be true, but it's really the people that, or the news in the middle, that you see the most progress. Kind of like it's good, it's bad, who knows.
yeah. So I mean, and he advocates a lot of practices. So I'm curious if you have, you know, if you have those kinds of practices built in your life. Like, so for example, he suggests everybody get up an hour earlier than they're already getting up. So, and talks about how you start your day. Don't pick up your damn phone, you know, things like that.
Yeah.
What about you?
So I've been, for the past year, been toying with like meditation and waking up and meditating for 15 minutes. And like you said, don't pick up your phone. Don't do all that. Kind of just take 15 minutes to focus, kind of say words of affirmation to kind of get that mindset going, that body ready. And so that's part of the routine that I've done. I've also really started like taking moments throughout the day to breathe and kind of just like calm myself, and to remember that like, A, this is only temporary, and B, this is also growth. Especially when it gets a little busy or hectic in here, I find I can feel my heart racing. I feel myself just kind of get frantic, and I'm just like, okay, let me take a moment. Let me focus on my mind real quick, my body, and just find that center that will keep me level-headed and in that zone, I guess. So that's another thing that I've taken up in the practices. I'm not sure if he says anything about health and wellness as physical activity, but earlier this year I started doing yoga during the lockdown, and started kind of coincides with meditation, but also for the body, getting loose, finding that center, and that's actually helped a lot. Right now I'm kind of got a lot of back pains. I've kind of had a curve yoga, but that was another thing that I've folded into my routine. And positive thinking, that one's been the biggest one. Like I said, the last 3 years, I've always thought positively, kind of cut out the negativity, which he had kind of touches on, and kind of take that fear out of my everyday life to kind of get past those roadblocks that are stopping me or other people from kind of achieving their goals.
Yeah. One of the things I like about this author, I too do yoga, although the funny thing is when the lockdown came about, I quit going because for me, part of the experience was going into the studio and doing it communally with other folks. And I don't enjoy it as much just doing it by myself. Maybe that's something I have to work on. But what I really liked about this book is that he's taking a lot of what I guess we would consider Eastern philosophy. You know, there's a lot of Sanskrit quotes in this book, but he's doing it in such a way that's kind of accessible. No matter where you are, you may not do yoga and you may not be all that interested in Eastern philosophy, but there's just a lot of practical things to think about And one of the things I love, and one of my favorite yoga instructors, who's also doing something for Willard Library right now, she always, when she's leading a practice, she'll say, just notice. And he talks a lot about just noticing. Noticing is different from seeing. And of course, he shared some examples about, go into a room and ask people where the nearest fire extinguisher is, and no one will know, even though they might have been walking by the same fire extinguisher for 20 years. And how we go through life on autopilot. And so much of this is just about paying attention. Just paying attention to the things around you and what that can do for your own peace of mind and your own centering. But he does it in a way that doesn't at all come across like this heavy meditation kind of thing.
Yeah.
Even though he does describe and gives a great instruction on how to meditate and how to do it. But I don't know. I think it's just more accessible for a lot of people who may be turned off or maybe intimidated by that kind of thing.
Yeah, he definitely breaks it down at a very easily digestible level. He also has a lot of those practicality tips that is like, here, try this, and they're like super simple, and they're like, okay, yeah, I can kind of do this. And it's not like this huge big picture thing. Like I would assume everybody like hears monk and they think of the ones in Tibet that are fully ripped up and don't talk for hours or days, and so like it's a big huge thing that's like not fully comprehensible at a larger picture. But then he breaks it down, or it's like that's not always what it is. It's just simple conscious decisions throughout your day that can lead you that monk way.
Yeah. And it's important to note that he's not a monk anymore. he's married, at least. Yeah. And but he found that he could do more good in the world. And he talks a lot of having purpose in your work, and a life of service is what thinking like a monk is. Did you have anything in the book that you wanted to share?
The one thing that has really stuck out to me when I was reading it was the area about fear. I don't really have the book marked, but why it really stood out to me was it really talked about getting to that deeper levels of fear, of why things are stopping you, and getting past that superficial level. I think he was talking about how he was talking about switching career paths and being a monk to his parents, and he really feared them and has always feared their how they're going to react to that doing bad. And he broke it down, got really, really, really deep. And then he even had a colleague that was a lawyer that was thinking about switching, but she was scared to switch. And so he used the process of just asking the same question over and over and over again, because your mind is going to try to deflect and run away. And you're presented with that question. And then when you just keep asking yourself, you're like, okay, well, why? And that really stuck out to me because I think if more and more people kind of did that, they would be able to get past those fake roadblocks that are holding them up and really set themselves free and find their purpose and find what they really enjoy. And that's kind of where I was a couple years ago, where I wasn't full-time. I didn't really promote that I was starting a business. Of course, it wasn't my full-time gig yet, but excuse me. But I was kind of worried about the public eye, what people thought, what people, when I posted something online about it, were they thinking negatively, positively? Were they thinking, oh, look at this guy, he's trying to be an entrepreneur? And then at one point, after listening to people like Jay Shetty with these philosophies, I really started breaking down those fears of like, it doesn't matter what people think. it's my happiness, it's my life. I need to do what makes me happy, not the projection of other people that I think will make them happy, that is really affecting my decisions.
Yeah.
So that part of the book has stuck out to me so far. A really, really good amount.
Did you read the part where he's standing in front of the dusty mirror?
I don't think so.
Okay, that and that's really cool, because you were alluding to this how we often I often judge myself by how I think other people are seeing me. And this analogy, and his instructor, or whatever it's called in the order, takes him into this really dusty room and puts him in front of a mirror, and he can't see himself. And so the monk takes his sleeve and just wipes all the dust off. His throat gets constricted, and he's sneezing and he's coughing. And the whole lesson is that, it's not always easy to look at yourself honestly,
right,
without the judgment of others, and sometimes it can be painful, but in the end you'll see yourself more clearly. So it was great. These are all my bookmarks. These are all the things that I could have read tonight. I love the piece about the soldier mindset versus the scout mindset. I'm like, I want to be a scout. I'll just go to that real quick.
Okay.
Because I think it's pretty cool. A soldier's job is to defend their side. Conversely, there's the scout mindset. Scout mindset means seeing what's there as accurately as you can, even if it's not pleasant. Soldiers have already signed on to a cause, so they value continuity. Scouts are investigating their options, so they value truth. Soldier mindset is rooted in defensiveness and tribalism. Scout mindset is rooted in curiosity and intrigue. Soldiers value being on the right side. Scouts value being objective. Julia Gallup says, who he's quoting here, she runs a podcast called Rationally Speaking. Gallup says, whether we're a soldier or a scout has less to do with our level of intelligence or education, and more to do with our attitude about life. I thought that was pretty cool.
It is. That is very good.
Yeah.
There's been, every time I've read this, there's been a moment like that where it's like, wow, this really is an awesome section of writing, where it's like, this is super applicable to anybody's life. And it's just like, wow, this makes me think and really want to take on this mindset.
Yeah. I'm putting the title up because one of our watchers didn't catch it, so I'm putting it up there so people can write it down.
Think Like a Monk by Jay Shetty. There was one that it was the quote in the beginning about routine, where it was, every day, think as you wake up. Today, I'm fortunate to be alive. I have a precious human life, and I'm not going to waste it. The Dalai Lama. My girlfriend read that to me today, and I was like, that is truly amazing way to think of life.
Yeah.
Don't dwell on the past. Don't be over anxious about the future. Kind of do what you can do throughout life and do as best as you can.
Yeah.
One of the quotes that I love and kind of live by is it just takes 1 millimeter a day to be better than you were the day before to show progress in the end. I think of that every day. Like, okay, wake up, let me just be 1 millimeter better than I was yesterday, and I'll see where I am in 6 months. Because it's a small enough goal where it's like I can feel accomplished what I did today, and it's not too big where you're gonna be like, man, I didn't accomplish that. I failed today. But it also is a reminder that just keep going.
Yeah.
1 millimeter at a time, and you'll accomplish your goals eventually. And some days you might have 10 millimeters. Some days you might just have one, but they count towards your goal. Yeah.
Somebody else I consider wise says, just do a little bit every day. Progress is inevitable. You can't avoid it.
Yeah.
So, and speaking of the future, in the last couple minutes here, what's next for Cafe Rica? What are you working on? What can people look forward to?
What are we working on? So we just started getting into roasting our own coffee earlier last month. And that's been really fun, kind of finding coffees, kind of roasting them, seeing how they really taste and what we can really come up with. We work with another local entrepreneur, Lee Winkler. He has a little quiet coffee company, excuse me. And he's been in the coffee business for 25, 30 years. So he's been working with us to start getting our own label out there. So that's been an extremely awesome adventure so far. As we kind of learn to navigate our world today, we're trying to figure out what we can do as an event. We're going to do Tacos and Tunes this year again in September, but we decided to hold off until next year. But we're starting to do a little bit more programming of what we've always envisioned for this place was to have like some music, maybe an open mic night, poetry, or storytelling at Sundown. So that's kind of coming into the future, like I said, as we kind of can have a more stable and environment and kind of navigate what's going on. But of course, things are forever changing, so we're tiptoeing still.
Sure.
So that's an exciting thing. And just trying to come up with awesome new food dishes, drinks. We try to come out with a seasonal menu every quarter when the seasons change. So that's going to come up soon.
I ought to mention, I mean, the food there is amazing. We talk about coffee a lot, but the food there is amazing. So
yeah,
that's great. And it's a real art roasting coffee, isn't it? I mean, there's a lot more to it than you might think.
It's extreme science.
Yeah.
Like there's just like everything in coffee or food, just little small minute details can change the recipe so much. So it's been fun that's the fun part about coffee for me is finding those little small intricate details that can change a coffee. Like for espresso, dialing it in, you're making micro changes, like little changes to the grind size or how long you pull it or how long you pre-infuse the grinds, and you can have a vastly different cup of coffee or espresso. So that's the fun part for me, is learning all those things and seeing how people react.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait. Tristan, I'm so glad that you joined us, and I look forward to seeing your business, which is brand new, really. I look forward to seeing what the future brings, and I'll keep going down there and doing work when I want to get out of the house or out of the library. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you for having me on here. It's been an awesome experience time. I love talking with people about things that really anything. It's kind of how we've connected over the years, is just talking about random stuff and having those good conversations. So I really appreciate you inviting me on here. And for all the people that are watching, thank you for watching, and hope you guys enjoyed.
Thank you. And next week, my guest is Jill Hind, the director of the YMCA in Battle Creek. I'm curious to share a little bit about how hard it's been to run a gym during the pandemic. But they're trying to get back at it. And I still don't know what she wants to what book she wants to talk about. So if you're watching, Jill, I need to catch up. I'm running out of time. So, all right. Good night. Good night, everybody. And have a great weekend, Tristan.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Appreciate it. You as well, Mac.
Thanks.